Let's go.
Hi guys, Andy and Spoken Label back in the house on a Friday afternoon, which is rare for me today. Usually I do is more Sunday and Mondays, but got a special night for me today. A lady that I've been chatting to for a few months now, and it shows us sometimes, Judy, done it with diaries. We can never get the quite days to match up sometimes. But I've got a wonderful Judy with me today. Now, Judy's going to talk about her debut novel, which I've been just finished this morning. It's absolutely tremendous. Now, Judy, obviously, tell people first of all a little bit about yourself, where you're from originally, what started you off your creativity.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andy. I mean, first, thank you so much for having me on here. I know we've been chatting for a few months. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, a bit about myself. So I am from Texas in the United States. I mostly grew up in Texas, went to school and everything here. And then with a little bit of a stint, I taught English in Japan for a little bit. And then I came back to Texas and now I'm in Dallas. And during this whole time, like ever since I was young, I've always wanted to write like a book. I've always had all these different ideas, and that's kind of where all this started. And during the pandemic, I took action, and now I am a published author for the book called The Vending Portal, which is a young adult sci-fi dystopia book. And really, those are like the genres that I personally really love. Um, yeah, that's me. I'm a published author now.
Tremendous, excellent. Now, there's plenty I want to talk to you about this, obviously, like I said, because I've read the book and I really enjoyed this book as well. So you did a very good job on this. Now, but obviously, let's go
Oh,
right
thank
back to the
you.
beginning then, obviously, because I can see from obviously reading up on you. I know you graduated originally from Rice University in Houston, didn't you? Studying history and Asian studies and education. So, how
Mhm.
does this impact on your book, first of all, then?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think as with a lot of people in the United States, usually when we go into university, we don't know what we're going to
Hmm.
major in or study. And that was me when I went in. I thought I was going to be economics, and then I took this really difficult course. I was like, that's not for me. I took English. I kind of liked it, but it wasn't quite, my it didn't really vibe with me. And so I ended up taking a few history courses, and I found that really hit it off for me. I really enjoyed reading about it. I mean, it was a lot of reading. I really enjoyed that. And in a way, history is like stories. And I think we can see in a lot of genres today, like a lot of them are based off of history, even like the fictional ones. They're all kind of inspired by history. Sometimes we draw like inspiration from historical characters or happenings. Um, so I kind of approached it that way, and that's how I came to that. And then my interest was in Asian studies, and I mostly focused on pre-modern China. So during like the dynastic period. And then from there, I mean, my mom is a lifetime educator. She's a teacher. And so I was
Ah,
not unfamiliar. Yeah. I mean, she's
makes sense.
incredible. Right? Yeah. And so she taught Mandarin. And so I thought, okay, maybe I will do education. And so I did a lot of graduate courses in education.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't realize it, but like you're right, it really did affect some of my writing in that like I'm very passionate about like Asian American news or Asian American like platforms, right? I really
Hmm.
want to support that. I want to increase exposure to Asian American like creatives and art. And that's part of the inspiration for the vending portal, where I have these young women or girls, and they are Asian Western, since America doesn't
Hmm.
exist in this world, but they're Asian Western because I want a bit more of that exposure for that group. And I know over the recent years, like it's been getting better. It's great. Like I don't know if you've seen it, Andy, but there was like Crazy Rich Asians,
Yeah, heard of
Everything
it.
Everywhere All at Once,
Yeah.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the full world. I think it is. Obviously, like, I'm an old man now, almost. Right? Yeah, but you're right. With the third way it's gone, you look at the Marvel universe, for example, which I know. Obviously,
mhm.
you're a massive fan of it straight away. You're right. It's everything's changed in it completely, hasn't it? Really, everything. The full world's moving along in a different direction, for the better, really, as well. I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's really cool to see it happening like in our lifetime. Obviously, there's still a lot more work to do. And I thought, you know what, for like young adult, like middle school to high school books, there are a few out there, but I still don't see it as much. Like my first thoughts are like Harry Potter, like Narnia series, Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe. I think Golden Compass, like those are the more or the very popular ones. And so I wanted to add a little more to that. And I think with my like, studies in education as well, like just I think it's really important to help educate like our youth and create these spaces for them. um yeah, and then I think just with my studies, like there was just a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of research, and that's what I did for this book. I There are like some parts with aquariums and stuff. It's like kind of focused a little bit on marine life, and I had to do a little bit of research on like world aquariums, right? And like, ooh, like how big are they? Like what's the technology in this? How thick is the
Yeah.
glass? Like, yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're doing got what is clearly with this book. I'm not going to give spoilers away because we'll keep off that game, but there is a hint in it that this definitely could be a series in the series. I felt straight away, and with that being the case, then you actually have to do the world building really in this first book. And how did that go for you then as a process then?
Yes, I am so glad you asked that question because world building was a huge part of the beginning. So over the years, I have been taking like little notes here and there, but nothing super put together. They were all just thoughts just
Hmm.
floating around. And so when I finally, set my heart to writing this book, it required a lot of organizing and stitching together. And I will say the first 3 or 4 months after I decided, like, yes, this is going to happen, it was all world building. I was not writing. It was, what does this world look like? Okay, what's happening in this world? Like, what are the differences between our world and this world that I'm building? Because obviously, I'm going to pull from what I know. Um, what about the similarities, right? Like, what do I want to, and I kind of do this very lightly in the book because the book is meant to be a fun read, but I also do want it to start conversation. So I was thinking, okay, what in our society do I want to bring to our readers' attention? But through the conduit of like this new world, because it's a dystopia. So I want them to think about, okay, what makes a good society? What about our society,
Yeah,
And
of course.
so brainstorming a lot of that, and then also brainstorming who our characters are outside of the story. So the main characters are Mal and Sage and Lewis. Like, who are they? What are they inspired by? Like, what motivates them? And I found that I really did base the two main protagonists off of myself and my sister.
I was going to
Um,
ask you that next. Then was that
yeah.
which one of those two was it based on you, and was it who was the other one based on? You always find that, don't you? 'Cause I know, obviously, I read your notes. You've done lots. You write lots of little short stories and stuff. And I always believe in writing.
Mhm.
You've got to put something of yourself in everything you write. So yeah, can't make sense of.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And you're right. Like we have to put a bit of ourselves in here, and that's what makes writing and publishing a little scary because you're
Oh,
putting a
terrifying.
piece of yourself out there to the terrifying, like for everyone to judge and read. Um, but yeah, the main protagonist is based off of me at the core, and the younger sister is based off of my younger sister at the core. And the relationship as well is kind of based off of us. But what's really interesting is as I wrote, these characters kind of branched off to become their own.
Yeah.
Because definitely by the end, I was like, oh, this is not my sister. But it's so neat to kind of see them leap off the page and
Right.
develop and become something else.
No, great. No, yes, Ray. I think he always does. This book is obviously a clear example of when you're starting the book off, it goes in a direction you're not expecting, no matter if you've plotted it
Mhm.
out or not. And the characters, like when they're doing like that, this book is a great example. I felt them coming to life themselves as the more along it went. So no, brilliant with that straight away. So tell us a bit more about this perfect society then. So just so people know in this other world then. Because like I said, I'll
Yeah,
let you say it rather than me, right? Because there
yeah,
is things in
yeah.
this that definitely don't happen in our world.
I know. Well, first, Andy, I mean, do you read dystopias? Like the
Not as
Hunger
much
Games?
as I should do, but I do. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
like 1984, things like
oh
that.
yeah, love 1984. Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I also love Blade Runner as well. The
Mm,
film version, and obviously I've read the original short stories. Like I do, yeah, the classics, of course.
yeah. Gosh, okay, yes, because so these were like inspirations for me. Like mostly 1984. I wanted it to feel that way, like, ooh, a government is watching all the time, but just like take a little step back and be a little less dark that
Oh
1984
yeah,
was. Um, but yeah, so in this perfect or dystopian, utopian society, um, the humans function a little differently from us in that they all have a kind of perfect memory. And in this world, it's called which is actually a combination of like Japanese and Latin, because I had to make up a word.
as you
And
do, yeah.
yeah, so in their world, it's called camperetinentia, um, which kind of is a combination that means like perfect recall. And they all basically have a type of photographic memory where they're like a perfect log inside their heads. So they can go back and like recall exactly what they were doing at whatever moment on whatever day to like the most small details. And the thing is, they can revisit it and actually like focus in on details that they weren't aware of in the moment. So it's like you have a recording in your head.
Yeah,
Because of that, obviously crime rates in the society are very low because everyone has perfect memory and they have like systems that where they can go in and pull up the memory for us to watch on a screen. Um, but the issue is because they have such like perfect memory, um, it's a little too much for the brain to handle. And so as they get older, especially once they hit 18, the brain starts to basically deteriorate in terms of like the synapses that make those connections. And so because it starts kind of deteriorating at that point, well, the children kind of mature very fast because they have that memory and that maturity. But once they start deteriorating, they need the government's help. And that's where the government kind of overlook steps in. So they have like a serum that people can shoot themselves with to like help refresh and recall their memory. The government has these rooms where people can go in and like see the memory. So they need help from the government to recall the memory and see it, even though it's still in their heads. They just like can't make that connection anymore. And so because of that, I mean, the government is helping the people. They also have universal food care, and that's kind of like a nudge toward the fact that we have food deserts here, all over the world, and food issues. And so this society is like universal food care, and they calculate it based off of some sort of formula on like number of people in your household, like your job, etc. um yeah, they have a lot of perks, but because the government can look at your memories, they know everything, and they don't see the issue with it. But like obviously us, like we do, we're like, oh my gosh, like they can see everything we know. They know everything that's going on. um and the issue is when they know everything and you have to go through them to see your memory, they can definitely kind of mess with it a little bit.
yeah,
And that's the
yeah,
big problem.
yeah. Now, well, we won't give any more spoilers away because that's obviously when a lot of the fun starts. And fun's a good word, isn't it? Fun starts in the second half of the book, definitely. Now, the other thing I want to talk about in this
Mhm.
book particularly is I liked it when you went the two girls went into this other world and they met how the world was policed. So I found that was quite interesting. So tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that then.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking about that. So in this new world, they don't have police. They call them enforcers.
Yeah.
Because the purpose of
Where
them,
did you come up with the idea for enforcers? Because it that makes it feel like a bit like a vigilante almost, except it's not.
I'm not gonna lie, while I was writing this and developing this part, I was watching this animated series called Arcane on Netflix, which I think is
Mm.
based off of a game. But yeah, what they have are enforcers in their society. But their enforcers are kind of intense. They're very like quick to act and stuff. But I was like, ooh, that's an interesting name for something that I want. So that's where the name came from. And like in a way, I also wanted them to sound very severe because the government is a little bit severe, but it's like a little unclear. So that's why I stuck with that name. And so what these enforcers do in this society, they're kind of like community mediators. And I think this is kind of like a nod towards Japan. So when I lived in Japan, not saying it's perfect, but what's interesting about like that community and their police officers is that they don't hold guns. They're not armed.
Mm,
But also a big purpose of them is to just like help. Like if someone is lost or someone's like out and about, like police will come and help, and like people aren't really fearful of them. People like look to them for help. And I thought, like, you know what, that would be kind of nice. Like, these people are just like community mediators who help like solve problems, or like firefighters get your cat out of the tree or something. And so that's what these enforcers are. There's like one per sector, and they're like the community's go-to person if someone sees someone who looks kind of fishy outside and they don't know what's going on, or it's like, oh, like my neighbor took my bakeware, never returned it, like help us resolve this. So these enforcers are really highly viewed in this society. Like people really do like having them
yeah.
around.
Yeah, you can. There is a full feel in the book, definitely. Like I said, I remember it well when the two girls met the first enforcer, and
Mhm.
it can't think with the use of the word enforcer. It made me think, oh, blah, blah, what we got, what they walked to do, like some sort of homicide and maniac world. And they were told basically,
Yeah.
so I'm just not giving big spoilers because it's early in the book. Basically, this enforcer was a more softer one that they might encounter elsewhere. And I thought, that's interesting. Straight away with it. So now I want to ask you a couple of bits and pieces. Obviously, we give plenty away with the book anyway. So, but it's an excellent book. Now, you obviously applied for funding originally, didn't you, through Indiegogo.com? So when the book was first developed, now tell us about what made you want to go with that page.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, as many creators and just people know in general, publishing something does take some funds. And I was like, what should I do? And fortunately, my publisher, New Degree Press, they were like, well, you know, what we do with a lot of our authors is we have them run a campaign. You run a campaign, like a pre-order campaign, and so people can pre-order your book, which helps then fund your book and the publication of it. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's great. And so the publication process for me actually was like zero money out of my pocket. I did pay for like other things, like consulting services, but the actual printing of it, laying out like all that stuff, and like using editors was covered by my Indiegogo. And honestly, it's also a great way to market, right? Like get early kind of excitement for it. I mean, that was the
Mm,
first time I announced it to like the world and my friends and family. I was like, hey, I have this
brilliant.
pre-order campaign, right? Like if you pre-order it, my book is going to come to life. Um, really, I'm really grateful for that. But also like I'll put your name in the acknowledgments because they did make the book happen. Right. And so I think it's like a right. I think it's a cool experience for people like, wow, like my name's in a book. I helped make this book happen. So like in a way, like this book isn't just my book. It's like the book of everyone who contributed. So that's why I went on Indiegogo. And I know Indiegogo has a lot of like indie or Kickstarter projects. It's kind of a really cool place to peruse. They're like sometimes they're like weird like tech gadgets on there as well. It's very neat. And so I thought it's a great avenue to get people to look at it. Like, you know, I am a new author, so it's a great place to put it on there and advertise there.
I also liked as well, and I didn't ask you about this before as well, the what little trailer that appeared on YouTube advertising your book from New Degree Press as well. I love that. So did you have much of a hand in that, or was that more your publisher really that did that extra little trailer for you?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I never thought that like it would have a book trailer, right? I mean, ooh,
Yeah.
this is very intense. It's like a movie.
Yeah, I've seen the Nun before, but
But no,
that was
so
one of the better ones I've seen. That definitely so.
yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. So the idea was my publisher's idea. They're like, hey, you should create a book trailer, get people interested, because obviously you don't have the book to show people. So let's do a little trailer to get them a little interested. And I was like, okay. And then as for the trailer itself, it was mostly me in terms of what I wanted it to be. So finding like the videos and the images that I wanted, as well as choosing kind of like the thematic music background. That was all me. And then they put it together. And I remember the first rendition wasn't exactly what I wanted. So then I go back to them like, hey, like cut these super short, like make these images go by really fast, make sure it aligns with the music when the music changes. Like that was me. And then they did that and yeah, it came together.
No, it looks excellent, definitely. So now we'll start winding up at this point anyway, because I want to give you a chance to do a bit of reading for us in the second half. But obviously, to wrap up then,
Yeah.
first of all, then, as people are regulars to this podcast will know, I always like to ask, what plans do you have next?
Yes. If I know you read it, Andy, and if anyone happens to pick it up, I think you'll see at the end of the book, I do plan on a sequel. I do set it up for kind of a second, third book. So I think that's very obvious there. But
Yeah.
also I think in the future, I I definitely want to do a prequel, Andy, with Romilda's story.
Good, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always a good idea if it helps you fill the. Because I always believe, when the amount of you spent months right getting the book together, the world, there's going to be stories
mhm.
that reveal why it went in the state it did. So there is definitely always scope for that one, definitely. So, but that's straight away with it. So, no, like good luck with
Yeah,
it. So, now you made me laugh as
for
well.
sure.
I'll just ask you very quickly as well. Where was it now? Yeah, I love this bit where in your bio on Amazon, which is a tremendous way, you mentioned about scribbling. You're always scribbling mini stories wherever you can. I'm subsequently forgetting them. Oh, is it? Have you got like
Yep.
big piles of them in your flat and stuff, and you don't know where they are?
Yeah, basically, like I'll write it on a post-it, right? Or a sticky note,
Hmm.
stick it somewhere, stick it in my agenda, and then just like never see it again.
Oops, yeah, I'm like that because I've got like, if you ever see the way I write, I've got like lots of little A5 hardback books all my writing in, and I started these when I was
Yeah,
10, and
yeah,
I'm 50 now, so nothing to hide in it. I've got 65 of them wrote, so it's like filled up, and like it's sometimes if a publisher asks me, oh, Andrew, have you got that piece that you wrote on dot dot dot? And I'm thinking, yeah,
yeah,
give me 2 months to find it.
yeah.
That's why, but yeah, no, I know what you mean with excellent. So, obviously, Judy, then, seriously, wrap up then. If people want to find out more about you, where do you recommend they go?
Yes. If people want to find out more about me, I am the most active on Instagram. The handle is Judy, Judy Liu, Liu underscore author. You can find me there. I'm very active there. I might have a website coming up soon. We'll see.
Ooh, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Fingers crossed for that one, definitely. So, and I'm just going to add you
Yeah.
now. Just going to add you now on Instagram because I didn't know you're on that
Yeah.
page.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Organized.
I'll add
I
you back. Yeah. But
organized.
yeah,
Anyway.
otherwise you can find my book on Amazon in your respective countries, Barnes and Noble online. And then for those who want to support like small indie bookstores, it's also on bookshop.org. I know for them, they like donate a portion to like little independent bookstores and stuff. So also on there. And I believe it's also on Target as well. I don't know if you guys have a Target over there. It's like a
I've not
super
heard it.
okay.
That's not one I've heard of. So I'll take your word for it. There probably is, but I've not heard of it. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, no
I'm
worries. It's just a
useless.
supermarket. Yeah. But yeah, you can find me on all those main avenues and the book there.
Brilliant. Okay, okay. We'll wrap up this bit then, Judy. Let you catch a quick pause for breath because if people are wondering today, it's 7 o'clock in the morning where Judy is, so she needs a coffee before she goes into a novel. So
Thank you. Taking a quick sip right now.
we'll see you all in a minute, guys. Okay, let Judy finish the coffee off. See you in a minute.